Saudi Arabia today and in Israel tomorrow to discuss the crisis. The Israeli military says there's been intense fighting in the Jabalia area of northern Gaza, which it had previously insisted was mostly cleared of Hamas fighters. Our diplomatic correspondent Paul Adams has the latest from Jerusalem.
Fighting is still going on at both ends of the Gaza Strip. In the north, intense battles echo through the narrow streets of the Jabalia refugee camp. In the south, the Israelis have edged closer to the city of Rafah. The UN says more than 600,000 Palestinians have fled the area. Yesterday, Israel said it had recovered the bodies of 3 more hostages in Gaza. Hamas warned that the only way for others to return home alive was through negotiation, but ceasefire talks remain deadlocked. America's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is expected here tomorrow as the Biden administration tries to avoid a full-scale Israeli assault on Rafah. But this conflict's wider ripples remain very much in evidence along Israel's northern border with Lebanon and in the West Bank, where last night Israel carried out a rare airstrike which killed a commander from the armed wing of Palestinian Islamic Jihad.
Health officials are expecting an increase in cases of a diarrhea-causing illness in South Devon as an investigation to confirm how a parasite got into the water supply continues. 16,000 homes and businesses in Brixham have been told to boil and cool tap water before drinking it. Our correspondent Ben Wolving reports from the town.
The number of confirmed cases of cryptosporidiosis increased to 46 yesterday. The UK Health Security Agency says several hundred people have reported symptoms, and numbers are expected to rise. But people have been asked to only report a suspected case if they have blood in their diarrhea or symptoms which last more than 7 days. On Thursday, South West Water said it believed a damaged air valve on a pipe in a field containing cattle was a likely source for the entry into the water system of the Cryptosporidium parasite, which can be found in animal feces. Engineers are now working to check there are no further problems.
One of the pioneers of artificial intelligence, Professor Geoffrey Hinton, has said the government will need to pay citizens an income to deal with the impact of the technology. He said he was very worried about AI taking lots of mundane jobs. In an interview with BBC Newsnight, he also warned about it increasing the gap between rich and poor.
It's going to lead to a big increase in productivity, which leads to a big increase in wealth. And if that wealth was equally distributed, that would be great. But it's not going to be. In the systems we live in, that wealth is going to go to the rich and not to the people whose jobs get lost. And that's going to be very bad for society, I believe.
It's emerged the government is owed more than £250 million by unpaid carers who've received allowances they're not entitled to. The Department for Work and Pensions says the total amount owed includes historical debts it's seeking to recover. Scientists say there could be a repeat of last weekend's spectacular displays of the Northern Lights early next month as new solar storms are driven towards Earth. The huge sunspot that's the source of the radiation has now rotated away from the planet, but when it returns in around a fortnight, it could result in more aurora. Krista Hammond from the Met Office says the sun is reaching a point in its cycle called solar maximum, which creates more sunspots as its magnetic poles flip.
Certainly as we go through the rest of this year and the coming years, as we're going through solar maximum, we'll continue to see space weather events, and I think that there'll be the opportunity to see the aurora more. Whether we see an event of the magnitude that we saw weekend, it's impossible to say, but I think that certainly for more northern parts of the UK, this is sort of prime aurora spotting season.
I look at the weather now with Matt Taylor. You'll be asked a lot about that in a fortnight or so, Matt, but let's leave that for the moment.
Well, there is a small chance tonight across the far north of Scotland, but it's only a very, very small chance, and there'll be a lot more cloud around as well, Tom.
Right, wonderful.
But overall, the weekend is looking good for many of you. A dry weekend for the vast majority. There will be a few exceptions, a few isolated showers around, and maybe even the odd storm, and there will be some quite extensive mist and fog first thing, as we've got this morning across some northern and eastern parts. But really for today, England and Wales, a lot of that mist and fog will clear through. Best of the sunshine will be North Wales, northern parts of England this afternoon. Central southern parts of England and Wales, there'll be a lot more cloud around at times, and it's here we will see some rain today. This morning in the southeast, that will drift towards the southwest and across Wales, breaking up into some showers, some of those heavy and thundery. Northern Ireland and Scotland, a largely dry story today. A fair bit of cloud around to begin with, but some sunny spells breaking through. The exception will be in the far north and east of Scotland. There will be some lingering mist and sea fog to take us through the day. Limiting temperatures here compared with recent days, but highs for many 19 to 24 degrees.
Thank you, Matt. A look at the morning papers and news websites now. The election campaign may not have started, says the Daily Mail's editorial, but the battle lines are surely being drawn. The paper leads on comments by the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, that families will face a tax bomb of £2,100 if Labour wins the next general election. According to The Guardian, Labour has accused Mr Hunt of economic exaggeration. In Weekend Eyes, letter from the editor, there's an appeal to the Chancellor and his opposite number in Labour, Rachel Reeves, to come clean with their plans for spending taxpayers' money. The Times reports that teachers will be given statutory protection against claims of blasphemy made by religious groups. The proposals are from a government-commissioned report on political violence and disruption that's expected to be published next week. Sources claim the document has been influenced by cases including the protests against a teacher in Batley in West Yorkshire in 2021 after pupils were shown a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad. Dubbed the day that shocked golf by the Daily Telegraph, the arrest of the sport's world number one, Scotty Scheffler, creates plenty of column inches. The Sun reports that the God-fearing family man was led to a patrol car in handcuffs and charged with assaulting a police officer. The Daily Mail calls what happened an arresting day for Scheffler, which was capped when, according to the Times, he was featured in a police mugshot wearing a bright orange jumpsuit. That's all for the papers. This is Radio 4. In a few moments, we'll head to the Lincolnshire coast in the company of Martha Carney.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
I'm Greg Foots, and my show Sliced Bread is here to investigate the wonder products that you have questions about.
How accurate are these readings?
Does the price matter?
Which ones actually work?
Talking to the experts to see if the latest fads really deliver on their bold marketing claims.
I think there's a chance they can, but how much is the big question.
For me, they're the best things in sliced bread.
From LED face masks to air fresheners, sustainable period products to car tyres.
I hope you can help clear this up. Cheers.
Sliced Bread continues on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds on Thursday lunchtimes at 12:30.
Now on Radio 4, it's time to join Martha Carney for this week's Open Country.
With B2 Gibraltar Point, northerly 3 to 4, becoming variable.
I've learned large chunks of the shipping forecast off by heart because it's just a great way of lulling yourself to sleep, and there's a poetic rhythm hearing all those place names, the sense of our nation of islands being buffeted by storms. And I've come to one of those places, to Gibraltar Point, for this week's Open Country, because on this stretch of the Lincolnshire coast, people are going to extraordinary lengths to protect the landscape, because here beaches are literally disappearing year by year.
Got a short-eared owl, yeah.
What's that? That
So,
there?
just got a short-eared owl flying overhead.
Oh, I can see,
Yeah, that's feeding over the upper mature marsh, looking for bowls. There's a really good population of six-tailed field bowls here, so it's probably hunting for them. And it's just flushing the meadow pipits out of the marsh there.
Jim Shaw is the warden at the Gibraltar Point National Nature Reserve.
We're just standing outside the visitor centre now, and you can see the strand line that the large tide brought in last week with a small storm surge on top. Myself and Paul were sat monitoring the tide just to, keep buildings safe, keep people safe. It was the highest tide since 2013.
Oh, when there was the really big one.
Well, we had a big storm surge, with the northerly winds, low pressure system.
So it would have been like an upland here.
Yes.
And then we had the surge itself flush the field mice and the voles. Would swim for their life out to the hump over there, try and get some dry land. And lesser blackbacks and the black-headed gulls were coming and picking them off and eating them.
Bonanza for them.
Yeah, big bonanza.
You've brought me right up to the very top of the visitor centre here at Gibraltar Point, and I can see why, because we've got a 360-degree view all the way around the marshes, right out to the wash.
We're located right at the northern tip of the wash here, and we run across a 3-mile stretch of coastline. And we've got almost 1,100 acres of fully natural habitats formed by the wind and the sea. So we've got every single development stage of salt marsh, every single succession stage of sand dune, and these are all fully natural habitats, really dynamic, and it's a really special place for wildlife.
This is a beautiful modern building, but just down there we can see, and it's written there, isn't it, the old Coast Guard station. It's a red brick, slightly bigger than a cottage.
Yeah, so this was built in 1850, and you'll see surrounding the Coast Guard station there's a wall, and this would be where the tide would lap up to. And as you look over to the west, there's a creek, and that actually used to be about 7 or 8 times as wide in the Middle Ages, and it's a really busy shipping port for this part of the coast. And obviously the Coast Guard station was built to monitor those goods coming inward.
Just looking where the old Coast Guard station is now, and the wall around it. I mean, the sea is a long way away now, isn't it?
Yes, but if you were to go back to 1850s, this would be a beach, and it just goes to show how quickly these coastal habitats can form. You've got this constant pattern of erosion and accretion, and areas build. So it's a really interesting part of the coast to study.
Just coming along one of the paths now that takes us out towards, oh, there's a wonderful view right across the wash from here. You can see all the different sandbanks, and I mean, it's a gloomy old day, but actually it's quite clear. You can see all the way across to the North Norfolk coast, and it's really funny because I know that very well, and I've so often stood over at Hunstanton or Snettisham and looked across and wondered what was there. Well, this is it, it's Gibraltar Point, and it's such a wonderful wild landscape. I can't see anybody else here. There's just some birds. We heard a wimble just now, right across the marshes. It's so atmospheric. Why is this particular bit of coastline so important to nature?
We're located on the East Coast Flyway, an extremely important area for wintering and migrating water birds.
What's the East Coast Flyway?
This is a part of the coast where birds will use this as a migration route. So imagine you're a migrating whitethroat all the way from Africa, just travelling across the Sahara, and it's taken a long time to get here, lots of energy, and you see this really nice, attractive sand dune, lots of cover, lots of sea buckthorn. It just looks like the perfect place to nest.
I'm really interested in how this landscape has changed over time, because as I've been hearing, it's constantly shifting. So just tell me about the difference, say, over the past 50 years.
Started out around that time as a flat open beach, and then over the years the salt marsh habitats have formed where you've got all this sea lavender and scurvy grass, and then further east we'd have this outer dune section. But over the last 3 years all of that has washed away, and as you look to the north you'll see this creek. It's a large creek called the Greenshanks Creek, and that's exceptionally mobile. That's actually moved south by about 100 metres just in 2 years, and as that's happened the erosion point has changed and we've lost all of this outer dune, and that's actually exposed these World War II structures. So a nice bit of history there, but it has brought us about many management challenges too.
How did you find yourself in this kind of work?
I actually grew up in a very urban environment. My first wildlife encounter was chasing my babysitter with a large house spider, because I was always fascinated by spiders.
What a horrible little boy you
Yeah,
were.
that's it. I decided to retrain in my mid-20s. I was a car mechanic by trade. Yeah, followed my dream to work in conservation.
That's such a different kind of work, isn't it, from being a car mechanic to this?
Yeah, it does come in handy when the tractor breaks down on the beach, which happens quite regularly with our 1991 Massey Ferguson.
I can see why you might prefer this kind of environment to work in than a garage.
As long as I'm outdoors, then I'm happy. So.
Me too.
A third of Lincolnshire is below sea level, so we rely in many locations on defences. Some of those are more natural, so here we're standing on sand dunes which protect the area, but also we've got large concrete defences between here and further north up to Mablethorpe.
Deborah Higton from the Environment Agency.
Without the sea defences that we have, if they weren't in place, the high tides we have would see those tides going into the intertidal area, so sort of almost back to the Wolds on very high spring
Which is
tides.
a long way from here. It's more than half an hour's drive.
It is. It's well over 15 kilometres.
We're looking out over an amazing sandy stretch. I mean, I'm going to say as far as the eye can see on either side, really. But a lot's happening with that sand.
We put 400,000 cubic metres, so a vast quantity of sand gets dredged from offshore, and we bring it in on a boat. It gets pumped onto the beaches where we've got low beach levels. And those beaches, they dissipate the energy from the waves, they break up the energy from the North Sea waves, and they also protect the ageing concrete defences that were put in sort of post-1953, which is when we had the other big tidal surge here. And so they offer those two forms of protection. But what we see is that sand then gets moved away each year. It doesn't stay put. It's very, very volatile. The sandbars we've got here, they move around all the time. You can come out day by day with problems in different places. So every year that sand gets washed down and offshore, and we go back every year and replenish. So beach renourishment, beach replenishment, that's an annual activity.
It's a big area, isn't it, for military aircraft?
It is, what you can hear going over right now is the Typhoons, they're based at RAF Coningsby.
You're getting the sand from the seabed, are you? Isn't that risky?
The contractors that dredge the sand for us, they are under very strict regulation about where they can take sand from. Obviously it needs to be the right kind of sand for us, so we're interested in sort of what the grain size is, so it has to come from a place that gives us the right kind of sand.
Yes, one of the biggest examples of the kind of risks that you've seen here was in 2013 when there was a huge tidal surge, wasn't there?
There was, and a lot of the damage that we actually saw and experienced was in Boston and upon the Humber Banks. What happened here on the open coast was the beaches and the defences that we've got, they actually worked really well and did what we expected them to do. We saw the beach levels lowered by those tides, that tide as it came in. It did mean we had to come back and we had to do some sort of renourish and replenish those beaches a little earlier than we expected to and we would do ordinarily. But it shows that sort of absorbing the energy and creating a barrier to the sea is a really effective solution for us at the moment.
This is such a strange thing for the tourists who come here on their summer holidays, and you think the beach is a beach, it's always there.
It's a real tourist attraction. We have some people who come from all over Switzerland and some places and come to see it every year, and it gives us an opportunity to remind people why we're doing it with that flood risk and starting to talk to them about what it might look like in the future.
Gibraltar Point feels so wild, so remote. It's hard to believe that we're only a 10-minute drive from Skegness, which is one of England's most popular tourist destinations. They get nearly 1.5 million visitors every year. Inside the visitor centre, there are some tourists who are sheltering from the rain.
It's Tina and Peter Sleaford. There you go, it's Lincolnshire.
As long as I can remember, I've been coming up here for 2 weeks holiday, staying at my nan's, going to Sutton-on-Sea, playing the paddling pool, Maplethorpe, and then the Skegness. And a few years ago we bought a static caravan near Wainfleet. It's a different pace of life. You know,
Wainfleet's not very far at all from here, is it?
It's not, no. And if Skegness gets busy, you're not too close. We've actually got a beach at Chapel Point as well. So, you know, we spend a lot of time there when the weather's bad. Especially we'll sit there, read a book, have a look at it, watch the waves. We just love it.
So there are all these efforts going on to protect the coast, moving huge amounts of sand about the place, but there's still, for the people who live here, the constant threat of flooding. And in fact, quite often as you're driving around, you see 2 letters by the side of the road, ER, not for Elizabeth Regina, but emergency route. That's the way, if the floods got very bad, that's the roads you're supposed to take out of here. And that's why all along the coast there are lots of pumping stations like this one at Anderby Creek. Nigel Harrison has worked for the Lindsey Marsh Drainage Board for most of his life.
Well, I've worked for the Drainage Board for 37 years. When I first started, this was in regular use until the new station was built, and then it was decommissioned in '92 and the new pumps were put in, and kept it really in working order.
Just in case?
Well, yeah, and last October when we had heavy rainfall, I think we run them for 8 days, solid 8 days and 8 nights these runs for.
See, Anderby main drain, when people hearing that will think of a covered pipe, quite a small thing, but it looks like a canal or a river, really, doesn't it?
I think it must be 100 foot across, hasn't it, at this point?
Why are they so important to the people living here?
Well, without them, it would be just wetland. And I'm not saying every house would be flooded, but I mean, it'd be a totally different area. I mean, all the developments on the coast and one thing or another. I mean, I don't think it would have happened, would it? Not really. You can't do anything, can you? You could have the finest house in the world, the finest building in the world, but if it's got 2 foot of water in it, it's no use, is it?
No use at all.
No, it doesn't matter whether you're a millionaire or a pauper. If your house is flooded, it's flooded, isn't it?
Would you mind taking us indoors so we can have a look and see how it all works? Well, you can smell the diesel, can't you?
Yeah. Oily. It gets ingrained in you a bit, that smell. But yeah, this is number 2 engine. There's 2 engines in here.
These look really ancient parts of industrial archaeology almost.
Yeah, I mean, I would think when these were put in, they were very much pre-war technology, out of date when they were put in 1945. But all made at Lincoln at the time.
Made locally then?
Yeah, Ruston's at Lincoln and Boston Queen's.
When it's going, there must be quite a din in here.
Oh yeah, it's noisy. Yeah. The old place shakes, to be honest. Like, you can feel it on the rail rocks when they're both going. You stand on the rail and it rocks, you know, there's a lot of movement.
The road outside,
Oh yeah.
Quite a collection of giant spanners you've got there.
Yeah, well, they're the original kit that came with the Ruston engine. That's supposed to be able to do every job with it. You won't find money that size in a jeweller's shop, would you? Yeah, they're a bit too heavy for me nowadays. They're a bit heavy.
I certainly couldn't lift half of those.
No.
3,500 hectares of land drains to this point, so all the villages and all the roads, etc., are protected by the systems in here.
Also with me here at the Anderby pumping station is Andrew McGill, who's Chief Executive of the Water Management Consortium. And this pumping station is part of a huge network, isn't it?
It is indeed. It's one of 30 pumping stations along the coastline, from Gibraltar Point all the way up to Cleethorpes, which is part of the Windsor Marsh Drainage Board.
Just across on the other side we can see the newer electricity pumping station. There's some work going on there this morning.
Yes, there is. They're making quite a racket, aren't they? Yes, they're just to finish off. It's just undergone a £2.1 million refurbishment to upgrade the pumps, take into account climate change. So this diesel pumping station was about 4 cubics at 4 tonnes per second. And this has now been increased to come in at 5.4 cubics now. So that's 5 tonnes or 5.5 tonnes of water it can evacuate every second. And the water also gravitates out. We have a gravitate bypass.
It's just flowing downhill into the sea.
Yeah, naturally, as it used to do all those years ago before we started to actively manage the land round about the Second World War. And in order to feed the nation, they decided to improve the quality of the land by making it more able to sustain crops.
Would you say the kind of work that you're doing here, is there a greater urgency to it? Is it with climate change, with greater storms? Are you seeing more water on the land?
Yes, we are. And the fact that the land is all under drains, so it has land drains under every single field. And the drainage boards around the country, which account for about 10% of England's land mass, in fact, produce the highest quality crops. So we have a few large decisions for the government to make with regard to the importance of this land. However, if these new pumps here, the yellow and the blue ones, you'll see they've got the name Osmium on, Dutch company. Steve here is actually site engineer.
The man in the hard hat and the high-vis jacket.
Who ran the project.
So all the pump mechanism is underneath this pump deck, so it's basically invisible. And all the motor does on top is turn the pump mechanism within itself, and then it lifts the water from that level down there, and then throws it out into the surge chamber at the back there to a certain level, and then it naturally falls out to sea through a delivery tunnel under the road from there.
How far roughly is the sea from here then?
200 metres probably.
So you've got the latest technology in these bright yellow and blue electric pumps just here. What do you think about the old station, the old diesel one?
fantastic. They're made really well, they've run faultlessly for decades, and it's only now run to more energy efficient methods that we're adopting this, and fish friendly. These pumps are
Yeah, they're motivating the environment, let's be honest. But there is a romance about these
There is, yeah.
equipment, isn't there? Yeah. But these are made in Lincoln, aren't they?
No, they're made in Holland. The engineering specialists, aren't they?
I've braved the elements to come right down by the edge of the sea. I can barely feel my hands anymore. And at the edge of the shorebird sanctuary at Gibraltar Point, and the shingle, which is a really important habitat for lots of rare species of birds.
Oyster catchers really like this environment. They nest on the ground, bizarrely. It's such a striking bird as well, black and white and glaring red bill.
Paul Edwards, the shorebird warden again.
We were really concerned about the inundating tides and high tide sequences. With the nest being here, obviously we were scared that it was going to be, completely swept away. We also have quite a few foxes as well, so fox predation's another, and it's quite an exposed site, it's quite easy for a fox to find. So we made the decision to try a platform last year, which you can see in front of you there with the 5 feet tall legs there with a platform on top. We installed that next to the nest, and the oyster catchers actually used it as a lookout post. So they were looking out for predators, which was great. So I was thinking, oh, they're getting used to it, this is really good. We transfer the nest itself in a gradual fashion.
It's such a difficult decision, isn't it? To
It
know
is.
whether to intervene or
to
not,
leave to natural
knowing
process.
that the nest would be completely overwhelmed by the tide.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you're interfering and the birds might not like it.
Absolutely, yeah. So gradually get them used to the process of elevating the box.
Little by little.
Little by little. And they were accepting of this, seeing that it was more gradual for them. They were able to kind of to work with that. And they fledged the chicks there. Yeah, it's really good. Full success. As far as we know, this is the first time we've been able to transfer a nest from the ground up onto a platform. The 24 to 27 days incubating. I think it's 33 days for them to fledge. So it's a long time that they're vulnerable.
It does make you think it's incredible that the oyster catcher as a species has managed to survive.
When the eggs hatch, we have a night cover as well. So we have a team of people that cover the sanctuary at night time, and they stay awake from 10 p.m. at night all the way through to 6 o'clock in the morning, and they have a torch and they have an air horn, and every 15 minutes we do a sweep and we look for eye shine. So deer eye shine, got hare eye shine, got fox eye shine. So you have to be able to work out what's what.
What do the oyster catcher nests look like?
They're really quite basic. Essentially they've just scraped out almost like a rough hollow, sometimes not even that. They'll lay 2 to 3 eggs. The eggs are quite large, a sort of dark tan colour with black speckles. But they're very, very good parents though. They're very fierce in protecting the nest. They can chase off crows. The alarm's so piercing that they can alert other birds as well.
It's a whole range of shorebirds that you're keen to help protect, and I'm thinking in particular of little terns. For people who don't know these lovely birds, just describe them in a minute.
They're absolutely spectacular, yeah. So if you imagine a white swallow, they're absolutely stunning birds. So
that's a great way of describing them, because they've got the same kind of agile flight, haven't they?
They have, yeah. They're very, very agile. And if you think they're coming all the way from Gambia in Africa, all the way back to the UK, to our shores, the current breeding UK population is about 1,450, but the population is contracted, so that's what's classed as an unlisted species, the breeding population.
What kind of little tern population do you have here in Gibraltar Point?
So originally we had up to 50 pairs, but we have seen some contraction in the population over the years. We did have a really good season in 2015, but lately the trend's been downwards, although it's picked up slightly last year, and we fledged 4 young, so we had 8 nests in total.
What are the risks for them?
The tides, as we discussed, last year we had to raise the bottom of the nest and raise it above the tide. That was successful. The other pressures, predators again, predation is quite high. They'll take the eggs. Fox, if they get into the flexure, if they can jump in, they'll take eggs or chicks. Occasionally we see predators such as stoat, and we also have obviously sparrowhawk as well, but they tend to target more the rainbow. We use cages to protect the nests. Essentially prevents predators from reaching in and taking the eggs.
Sorry if I'm being a bit dense. Does it not stop the parent birds as well?
The ringplover tend to run in and out of the nest, they don't fly in. The mesh at the very base of the cage is wider, in 2020 it was really successful. After that, we had a female sparrowhawk that was very intelligent, and she learnt to associate the cages with prey. So yeah. So to the extent that we think it was the same bird over successive couple of years, and we set up a dummy cage, and we wanted to see if the cage was there, whether the sparrowhawk would come, and sure enough, she came.
This year, what are your hopes for oyster catchers?
We'll use these techniques again because they've proved successful in the past. We've got a thermal imager as well, so yeah, so we're going to be using that. That'll help us look for chicks and, you know, get heat signatures from the eggs themselves. Even at night time, you can see the heat signature from the animal itself, and we can get a sense of where they're at. And then we can build up a picture of the habitats that they're preferring, and then we can work out how best to protect them from that.
That's really ingenious, isn't it? Because that's the kind of things you just couldn't see with the naked eye, even with binoculars.
Yeah. The oyster catchers, actually, we're wondering if it's the same pair, but we've seen a pair checking this place out this season, just down on there on the shoreline. So we're seeing a pair always associated with this area, but it could be that because of the success they had last year, that they might be opting to use this area again.
So pleased to be able to see the oyster catcher. This really is a landscape where the sky blurs into the sea. You could just completely immerse yourself in nature. I must say, Gibraltar Point is such a special place, and I wonder if that's partly because its very existence just does seem so precarious.
Open Country was presented by Martha Carney. Producer is Mary Ward Lowry. It's a BBC Audio Bristol production for Radio 4. Next week, Martha will be in Cambridge with a bat detector.
The travel industry is booming. Global tourism is on the rise, and I'm not surprised. The excitement of discovering a new place is a feeling like no other. But here's the thing. Are we ruining the natural beauty, local communities and attractions we seek out so keenly? I'm Rajan Datta. Having explored the world, I'm now exploring how we can stop over-tourism, protect destinations and the environment from the negative impacts of travel. The Tourist Trap, with me, Rajan Datta, starting on Monday morning at 11 on BBC Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
Next this morning, it's Farming Today this week with Charlotte Smith.
Hello. Coming up this morning, the Prime Minister says fruit and veg could be picked by people on benefits.
We've seen a very worrying rise in people who are of working age but are inactive for health reasons since the pandemic. So the number of working age people...
would like to go and pick fruit?
Well, I think people can and should be expected to work.
The Welsh Government delays new farm payments.
We've always said that the scheme will not be introduced until it is ready, and I stand by that.
And we're at the first of the big shows, the Balmoral in Northern Ireland.
It's a social aspect. After especially this long, hard winter, everybody's glad to go out and meet people again and socialise.
More on all that later. Let's start though with farmers who are being asked to support South East Water with its new 25-year environment plan launched this week. It includes creating a new super nature reserve. More than 80% of the area covered by the company across Sussex, Kent, Hampshire, Surrey and Berkshire is agricultural. Well, the company is currently being investigated by Ofwat after it was revealed as the worst performer for supply interruptions last year, and some local farmers are not impressed with this new plan. Melanie Abbott was at the launch and met James Seymour, Deputy Director for Natural England in Sussex and Kent.
So you're walking past now is some of the rich chalk grass that South East Water own and manage up on the South Downs. And the idea is to grow from this nucleus of a site, only a small 60-hectare site.
So we're heading through this slightly muddy little path here, surrounded by bushes, until we come out into a clearing, into what is a really amazing view. What am I looking at here?
What you're looking out across is the Lullington National Nature Reserve.
The chalk aquifer we're standing on is vital for water supply, and preserving and increasing the grassland here in an expanded nature reserve will ensure water for the future. David Hinton is the Chief Executive of South East Water.
We'll look at areas that are challenged by nitrate and maybe introduce woodlands. That obviously takes time, but it will over a longer period prevent us having to take those nitrates out of the drinking water, which is a carbon-heavy power heavy, chemical heavy process, and they'll be avoided by these nature-based solutions.
What is the role of farmers in your new environment plan?
We've been seeing the real impact of climate change over the last few years. The agricultural sector and the water sector, both at the sharp end of climate change. So we're both looking for water security. And we can also assist effectively in flooding management by reusing floodwater potentially locally on farms instead of using tap water. So we can all benefit if we just work out the kind of water security cycle between agriculture and public water supply.
There are investigations underway into water standard failings, into supply interruptions. There's also been a 20% increase in customers' water bills. Some people might say that this is a bit of greenwashing.
No, it's not. So we see this as a really cost-effective way environmental management, providing water security. That's why we're doing it.
Can it mean anything positive though for customers' bills?
Well, the customer bill increase for us is largely about dealing with climate change going forward.
But those costs are going up at the same time as dividends are still being paid out to shareholders, £9 million worth.
The number sounds in itself large as a premium when you talk about millions, but it only represents a 2 to 3% yield. It is the only model that works.
Part of the plan includes reducing leakage. The company is the worst performer for water supply interruptions in England and Wales. A pilot project's underway where Kelly Ellis and her husband farm near Polegate.
What we have now are these remote water meters that's in real time, so it will alert us immediately with a spike in water use, and it can locate where that leak actually is.
The pilot will be extended, but some farmers at the launch, like Richard Brown, were less impressed with the plans unveiled.
About 3/4 of my river valley land has been repeatedly flooded this winter. It's still too wet to graze, even though we're in the middle of May. South East Water didn't talk about the Courtenay River at all in this meeting today. And South East Water needs to absolutely engage with us and the local community to make this river work better.
The company says it will be working with the Environment Agency to look at the issue.
Melanie Abbott reporting. Now a correction, because this week we